Hello there and welcome. Before we begin, you should note that this video covers the complete and clean local install of the original FP32 OmniGen version that currently only runs on CUDA capable NVIDIA GPUs with at least 12GB of VRAM. If you have an NVIDIA GPU with less than 12GB of VRAM, or you do have 12GB or more and just want to run OmniGen image generation much faster with minimal quality loss, then you should take a look at my other OmniGen local install video that covers the 8-bit quantization OmniGen version. I'll leave the link to that video in the description below for you. OmniGen is completely free, open source, and can be installed locally with unlimited private use, which makes it a no-brainer to install and use. In this video, I'll walk you through the complete clean and fresh step-by-step process to fully install the original FP32 version of OmniGen aimed at 12GB plus GPUs on your local machine using a user-friendly Gradio graphical interface so you can get straight on with using it without running into any install errors. I'll be installing everything on a Windows 11 PC running a CUDA capable NVIDIA GPU, so let's crack on. Before we begin the install, let's take a quick look at OmniGen's main functionality so we know what we can and can't do with it after installation. Sure, it's just been released and there's room for improvement, but it really is a solid start. I honestly believe text prompt based image and photo editing and manipulation is the way forward. OmniGen has common image generation capability. It can process various image generation tasks, including image generation, image editing, ControlNet based image conditional generation, and a lot more. OmniGen can tackle classical vision tasks. It's able to process some classical computer vision tasks such as de-blur, de-rain, inpainting, human pose estimation, and depth estimation. OmniGen has flexible and controllable image generation built in. You can generate images from text, edit parts of the generated images, generate redraws based on the human poses in the generated images, and extract objects from another image to integrate into the new image. OmniGen has referring expression generation capability. You can input multiple images and use simple general language to refer to the objects within those images. OmniGen can automatically recognize the necessary objects in each image and generate new images based on them. No additional operations such as image cropping or face detection are required. OmniGen is also working on inference capability and in-context learning ability. You'll be able to edit images without even needing to be precisely specific in your text prompt. Anyway, let's get into the installation. This is an overview of the installation steps that we'll go through. Each step is actually pretty straightforward and quick and easy to follow along to and complete. Many of you will already have a lot of the required pieces of software installed on your machine. So if you do, you can jump straight past those sections of the video. I'll leave the timestamps for each install step in the description below for you, so you can just easily jump to the sections that apply to you. Anyway, let's get stuck into it. Step 1 is to make sure we have the latest drivers installed for our CUDA capable NVIDIA GPU to utilize CUDA 11.8 and give us the fastest image generation times. If you already know that you have a CUDA capable NVIDIA GPU with an updated driver of at least version 452.39, which is needed for CUDA version 11.8, then you can skip to the next step. CUDA is basically an NVIDIA technology that gives a significant processing speed boost to CUDA capable NVIDIA GPUs. Most newer NVIDIA GPUs are CUDA capable. If you don't know whether your NVIDIA GPU is CUDA capable, then take a look at the official NVIDIA GPU CUDA list. I'll leave the URL link in the description below for you. To download the correct driver from NVIDIA, we need to know our GPU details. To find our GPU model and VRAM amount, we'll right-click on our taskbar and select Task Manager. From the left menu, we'll select Performance and then GPU. In the top right hand corner, we can see that I have an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3070, and if we look down at the bottom of the window where it says dedicated GPU memory, we can see that I have 8GB of GPU VRAM. Ignore the 16GB GPU memory, that's a shared memory number. You should make a mental note of your GPU model as you'll need it later. Let's find, download and install the latest drivers for our GPU. We'll open the NVIDIA drivers download page in our browser. I'll leave the URL link in the description below for you. This is where we'll need to select our GPU model that we made a mental note of previously. Let me select mine. GeForce RTX 30 series, GeForce RTX 3070. For operating system, I'm running 64-bit Windows 11, so I'll select Windows 11. I'll leave the default US English language and click Find. There's two types of NVIDIA drivers available. A game-ready driver, which is best for gaming, offering priority gaming support and speedy fixes. Then there's the Studio driver, aimed at content creators, offering a focus on stability and quality. I'll select the game-ready driver by clicking on its View button because I like to have all the latest bug fixes and speed improvements. The download page for my specific driver will open, showing the driver details, including the driver version. We just click the download button. On the Save As window, I'll save the file in the root of my E drive, then click Save. The file will take a little while to download. Once the file has finished downloading, we'll navigate to my E drive. In here, we can see the downloaded driver.exe file. We'll double click this file to begin the installation process. If a "Do you want this app to make changes to your device" warning window pops up, we'll click the Yes button. The installation process first needs to extract the required files. We'll click OK to confirm the default extraction location and extract the required files. All these files will be auto-deleted after installation. Once all the files have been extracted, the first installation window will pop up. Here, we have the choice to either install the NVIDIA driver and the GeForce Experience, or just the NVIDIA driver. The GeForce Experience adds additional functionality and auto checks for driver updates in the future. I don't need the additional bloat, so I'll select to install only the driver. Then we'll click the Agree and Continue button. On the next install window, we have the choice between an Express or Custom install. The main difference between the two options is that the Express option retains our current NVIDIA settings, and the Custom option allows us to reset all settings during install. We'll select the Express option and then click Next to start the installation, which will take a bit of time. Eventually, a message will be shown saying that NVIDIA installer has finished. We'll click the Close button. Let's have a quick check to make sure the correct NVIDIA drivers have been installed correctly. We'll show our desktop. We'll right click on our desktop and select Show More Options, then select NVIDIA Control Panel. If a license agreement confirmation window appears, we'll just click the Agree and Continue button to accept the terms. On the opening NVIDIA Control Panel window, our driver version and GPU will be shown. Everything looks good. We can close the window. OK, that's the latest NVIDIA drivers installed. On to the next step. Step 2 is to install Git, so we can copy the OmniGen files to our computer in the next step, and use Git to run future updates automatically if needed. If you already have Git installed, then you can skip to the next step. We'll open the Git download page in our browser. I'll leave the URL link in the description below for you. I'm running a 64-bit version of Windows, so we'll click on the Windows link. The Download for Windows page will open. Then we want the standalone installer, so we'll click on the 64-bit Git for Windows Setup file link. On the Save As window, I'll save the file in the root of my E drive, then click Save. Once the file has finished downloading, we'll navigate to my E drive. In here, we can see the downloaded git.exe file. We'll double click this file to begin the installation process. If a "Do you want this app to make changes to your device" warning window pops up, we'll click the Yes button. Then we'll click the Next button on the next setup windows to accept the default installation settings. On the last setup window, we'll click the Install button to start the installation process. The installation won't take very long. Once the installation has completed, the completion window will be shown. We'll untick the View Release Notes checkbox and click the Finish button. OK, that's Git installed. On to the next step. Step 3 is to download all the OmniGen files to our computer by cloning the OmniGen GitHub repository using Git. I want to install OmniGen in the root of my E drive, so we'll navigate there. Then we'll click into the address bar and type in cmd and press enter. This will open the command prompt in this location. We'll be using a few bits of syntax as we proceed, so I'll leave all of them in the description below for you to just copy and paste, and I'll put a specific syntax reference on the screen so you can find the correct syntax for that step super easily. Anyway, at the prompt, we'll copy and paste in syntax 1 to clone the OmniGen GitHub repository. Then we press enter. It'll take a while to download all the files. Once cloning has completed, the prompt will return to the starting prompt state. We can now close the command prompt window. If we go into my E drive, we can see a new OmniGen parent folder. And if we go into this folder, we can see all the folders and files that were downloaded to our computer. OK, that's OmniGen cloned. On to the next step. Step 4 is to install Miniconda, which we'll use to create an OmniGen virtual environment in the next step. You could just download and install Python and use that for creating a virtual environment, but Conda is more robust and offers other capabilities that we'll utilise. Although this step in the creation and use of a virtual environment is technically optional, it's certainly good practice and highly recommended to keep everything for OmniGen segregated and prevent any issues with any other software we have installed on our computer. If you already have any version of Miniconda or Conda installed, then you can skip this step. We'll open the Miniconda download page in our browser. I'll leave the URL link in the description below for you. We'll scroll down a bit to the latest Miniconda installer link section. This is the latest version of Miniconda that comes bundled with the latest version of Python. We won't actually be using this base Python version 3.12 at all. Instead, when we create virtual environments, we'll follow best practices and create them with specific versions of Python that we choose, which Miniconda allows us to do seamlessly. The advantage of using this latest Miniconda version is that it has all the latest bug fixes and improvements contained, so the Conda functionality is better for our purposes. Anyway, I'm running Windows, so we'll click on the Miniconda 3 Windows 64-bit file link. On the Save As window, I'll save the file in the root of my E drive. Then click Save. Once the file has finished downloading, we'll navigate to my E drive. In here, we can see the downloaded Miniconda3.exe file. We'll double click this file to begin the installation process. We'll just click Next on the first setup window. I agree on the next window. On the next install type window, we'll leave it at the recommended default to install for just me, and click Next. On the next install location window, we'll leave it at the default location under our username. Then we just click Next. On the last advanced options window, we'll leave the first Create Shortcuts checkbox ticked. We'll also tick the second Add to Path checkbox. We won't worry about the warning message that appears. The warning is based on a legacy issue for mainly non-Windows systems, and for us Windows users, ticking this option saves us the hassle of fully adding Miniconda to path manually after installation. Then we'll make sure that the third checkbox is unticked, since we don't want to add the bundled Python 3.12 to our system registry as the default version, in case it overwrites any current Python version already set that our system may use. We'll also tick the last Clear Cache checkbox to delete the temporary install files after installation. Then we'll click Install to start the install process. The installation won't take very long. When it's completed, on the Installation Complete window, we'll click Next. On the final window, we'll untick the two checkboxes and click the Finish button. OK, that's Miniconda installed. On to the next step. Step 5 is to create and activate a virtual environment for OmniGen named OmniGen with Python 3.11 using Conda. We'll navigate to and open the OmniGen folder that we cloned into my E drive. Then we'll click into the address bar and type in cmd and press enter to launch the command prompt window in this location. At the prompt, we'll copy and paste in syntax 2 to create a new Conda environment named OmniGen with the latest version of Python 3.11. Then we press enter. It'll ask us to confirm the default environment location. We'll type Y and press enter. It won't take very long to create the virtual environment. Once the environment has been successfully created, the prompt will return to the starting prompt state. You can always find all the virtual environments that you create in the Miniconda 3 environments folder under your username. I'll leave the full path in the description below for you. Now we need to activate our new OmniGen virtual environment. At the prompt, we'll copy and paste in syntax 3 to activate the environment. Then we press enter. It won't take long to activate. Once it's activated, we'll see the virtual environment name OmniGen in brackets preceding the prompt. Don't close the command prompt window. We'll come back to it shortly. OK, that's the OmniGen virtual environment created and activated with Conda. On to the next step. Step 6 is to install all the OmniGen requirements and dependencies. We'll switch back to our command prompt window. Still in the OmniGen active virtual environment, at the prompt, we'll copy and paste in syntax 4 to download and install a bunch of required packages in editable mode. Then we just press enter. It'll take a bit of time to download all the required packages. Once everything has completed successfully, the prompt will return to the starting prompt state. Don't close the command prompt window, we'll come back to it shortly. OK, that's the OmniGen requirements and dependencies downloaded and installed. On to the next step. Step 7 is to replace some standard installed Torch files with CUDA-Enabled ones to give us an image generation speed boost with our NVIDIA GPU. If we don't do this, OmniGen will throw errors and it'll use our slower CPU instead of faster GPU for image generation. In case you're wondering, we don't need to separately install the actual CUDA toolkit and CUDA DNN files, as the CUDA Torch install includes all CUDA runtime dependencies. The latest version of OmniGen now uses Torch 241 and Torch Vision 0.19.1 in its standard install, which provides better memory management over the previous 2.3.1 version. We don't need the Torch audio files as OmniGen doesn't use audio. We'll be doing a like-for-like Torch version replacement, but using the CUDA version 11.8 ones. Torch versions above this, or using CUDA 12.1, currently results in OmniGen errors. To make sure we download and actually replace the same versioned already installed files and also not use any cached versions of the files, we'll force a new and clean download and install of the required torch files. We'll also use pip to install, as using the equivalent Conda command returns errors later. Anyway, enough boring you with the technical details, let's continue. We'll switch back to our command prompt window. Still in the OmniGen active virtual environment, at the prompt, we'll copy and paste in syntax 5 to download and install the CUDA 11.8 torch files. Then we just press enter. It'll take a bit of time to download and install everything. Once everything is completed successfully, the prompt will return to the starting prompt state. Don't close the command prompt window, we'll come back to it shortly. Okay, that's the CUDA-Enabled torch files installed. On to the next step. Step 8 is to install the Gradio web UI so that we have a nice graphical user interface to use OmniGen through. We'll switch back to our command prompt window. Still in the OmniGen active virtual environment, at the prompt, we'll copy and paste in syntax 6 to install Gradio and Hugging Face Spaces, which is where the demo is hosted. Then we press enter. It won't take long to install everything. When it's completed, the prompt will return to the starting prompt state. Don't close the command prompt window, we'll come back to it shortly. Okay, that's the Gradio web UI downloaded and installed. On to the next step. Step 9 is to run OmniGen for the first time. We'll switch back to our command prompt window. Still in the OmniGen active virtual environment, at the prompt, we'll copy and paste in syntax 7 to launch OmniGen. Then we press enter. The first time we run OmniGen, it'll take a fair amount of time, as it needs to download and install some additional files, including the all-important model file, which is 15.5 gigs in size. Fortunately, this only needs to be done once, when we run OmniGen for the first time. Subsequent launches of OmniGen will open it much quicker. If you have any issues with downloading the model, then you can always manually download it from the official Hugging Face page. I'll leave the URL link in the description below for you. And in case you're wondering, the model is saved in the cache folder under your username. I'll leave the full path in the description below for you. Eventually, everything will complete. If a message saying info could not find files for the given patterns is shown, don't worry about it, this isn't an error, and presumably will be suppressed in future versions of OmniGen. A local URL will be shown in the command prompt window. We just hold down our control key on our keyboard and click the URL link with our mouse. If OmniGen opens in your browser, then congratulations, you've just installed OmniGen successfully. By the way, currently, when you generate an image, an error message appears in the command prompt window saying one torch was not compiled with flash attention. You can just ignore this. OmniGen doesn't use flash attention. Maybe the developers will also suppress this message in future versions. Anyway, make sure you don't skip the next bonus step to automate launching OmniGen in the future. Step 10 is optional, but highly recommended, to save us time and hassle every time we want to launch OmniGen again. Launching OmniGen the manual way is just too much hassle, plus we need to remember all that syntax. To run it manually, we would need to launch the command prompt window from within our OmniGen folder, remember and type in the syntax to activate the OmniGen Conda environment, then finally remember and type in the syntax to run the app using the Gradio web UI. Instead of that, how about we just have a file that we double click and all of the above manual steps are done for us. Let's create just that. We'll open our OmniGen folder. We'll right click in an empty space, select new, then text document. We'll delete the document default name and the .txt file extension and rename it to run.bat. And then press enter. On the warning window that pops up, we'll click Yes to confirm we want to change the file extension. We'll right click our new run.bat file and select Edit in Notepad. Now we just copy and paste in syntax 8. Depending on the location of your OmniGen install, you'll need to change the two locations on lines 2 and 3. Then we just save the file and close it. Now when we want to run OmniGen, we just navigate to our OmniGen folder and double click our new run.bat file. Of course, you could also just create a shortcut to this file on your desktop for added convenience. Then when the local URL link appears in our command prompt window, we just control and click it to open OmniGen using the Gradio web UI in our browser. Nice and easy. Now you know how to do a complete and clean install of the original FP32 version of OmniGen aimed at 12GB plus VRAM NVIDIA CUDA GPUs. Now you can get on with experiencing what I honestly believe is a future direction of image and photo editing and manipulation using text prompts. Anyway, hope you found this video helpful and I'll catch you in the next one.